Hello, and welcome to Money Matters TV and our segment called Growth Stories, where we hear from entrepreneurs and advisors who share secrets and advice on what business owners need to know to grow. My name is Mike Verrill, and I'm a vice president with the Sharp Financial Group. The problem for business owners is fractured business and personal financial advice. And our solution is unified approach, integrated financial management approach, where we've unified business advisory, accounting and tax, wealth management, investment banking, and family office services to help create maximum value and help business owners and their families achieve extraordinary things. From time to time, issues involving life sciences, healthcare, and technology issues may be discussed on the show. Those discussions should not be viewed as financial advice. Moreover, since the program is pre-recorded and shown at a later date, some of that information may no longer be relevant. You should always seek advice from your financial advisor before entering into any financial transaction. I'm joined by my co-host, Katie Wenger, a transaction and advisory associate with CBRE, global real estate consulting firm. Katie focuses her time on helping high growth companies in the Philadelphia region develop real estate strategies that support their business objectives. Katie is also an advising committee member for the Philadelphia Alliance of Capital and Technology and also serves on the committee and is actively involved in the network, the Women's Network in Philadelphia. Katie, great to see you as always. Thanks for joining me for Growth Stories.
Yeah, you as well, Mike. It's great to be here.
So I think since the last we spoke from an economic standpoint, there's quite a bit going on. There's some influences that we haven't seen in a long time. One of those is a very high rate of inflation, and the other is uh, driven by the Fed is an increasing interest rate to help combat that inflation. So I was just curious from your standpoint, from a real estate market and commercial leasing, what kind of things are you seeing? How's that impacting what you're advising clients on, and what are they, what is it bringing them to as part of their thought process? What are they considering?
Yeah, it's definitely having an impact. I think where we see it have the most impact is on the financing of sales and the trading of buildings in our market. So with a higher interest rate, it's just more expensive to get that financing. And then in addition, with the inflation that we're seeing, primarily with construction costs or move costs or capital costs that companies have to invest into a move scenario, it's going to be more expensive than traditionally. So both of those items are impacting the decision making and really driving different decisions than maybe we would have seen 18 months ago.
Right, right. So something definitely for us to keep an eye on. Hopefully, it's a temporary impact and it's not a long-term trend, but I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
So we have a special episode today. We usually interview an entrepreneur with a great growth story, but today we're going to dig into our backgrounds and share a little bit information, more information on us and what we do, and kind of what the path was that led us there. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. But before we
Fantastic.
do that, we have a question from one of our viewers, and James Waldron from Philadelphia has a question. He would like to know, should I buy or lease my commercial office space, and what should I consider? I think we've covered this in prior episodes, but for James's benefit, I know this comes with a lot of variables, but I was hoping you could give some maybe pointers on things that James should be thinking about.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to. And it's definitely a good question because I think in a market where we see maybe less office usage, everybody's initial thought is that it's a fantastic time to kind of go into the office market. But what we've seen is that, of course, with inflation and the higher interest rate, buildings are still expensive and it's still a really high cost of entry into purchasing. And also, you're incurring a lot of risk if you are going the purchase route, given that you're going to have to care for the property with property management, maintenance, etc. However, when you are leasing a space, you're kind of responsible for what's in your four walls. So there's a little bit less risk, and a lot of times, landlord might take on some of that construction or again, really a lot of that risk when it comes to building the space that you're looking for. So it will absolutely depend on the goals of the business and the goals of our client. But it's definitely two different paths that both have benefits and both have things to consider in terms of the risk mitigation side of things. So
Gotcha.
hopefully that
Hopefully
helps.
that. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, hopefully that helps, James. And I think, also the advice is to seek out someone like Katie to help you think through those things, because if you're not doing it every day, there are things that you need to be aware of and that could crop up and surprise you. It's always great to hear from our viewers. So here's how to send future questions to Money Matters TV.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says Send Us Your Questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, MONEY, -matters, MATTERS, TV.com.
On our segment, Growth Stories, we get to hear the fascinating backgrounds and ups and downs and lessons learned from entrepreneurs as they grow successful businesses. Today, we thought it might be fun to hear the backgrounds of Katie and I, kind of how we got to where we are, and how we think about business and strategy for clients, and how our backgrounds helped inform us for that. And I think Katie will agree with me that I think to do what both of us do, is it takes a very entrepreneurial minded spirit. So I guess maybe we're intrapreneurs as opposed to entrepreneurs, but I think that's what drives us to be successful as well. So, Katie, I'll have you start off. You can be the first jumping off point here. And so, as you know, we ask backgrounds. We like to get childhood experiences, those sorts of things from our hosts, or guests rather. And so, just curious, can you talk about your childhood? What was your experience like growing up? How did those principles that you developed build the foundation for what you use today?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to share. So I grew up right outside of Philadelphia in Upper Darby, Pennsylvania, in a hardworking community with two hardworking parents. And, my dad was in the sales role, as well as my grandfather. He was actually a tool salesman in Upper Darby with an 8th grade education. And he really taught myself and the rest of my family what it meant to work hard, and didn't matter what day it was, what you're doing, how you're feeling. As if a client needed something, he got up and he made it happen. And he would always treat everyone with the same respect as he expected to be treated, and as if they were the CEO of any great company. So I really kind of learned business from him and my father. And on the education side, my mom felt that education really unlocked the door to any opportunity. So she really pushed us to work hard in school. And on my own right, I just loved the game of softball. So I played a really competitive softball career as I was growing up. So all of those experiences kind of put together have got me to where I am today.
That's awesome. And so you have that great foundation, the work ethic. We hear so many times from entrepreneurs, that's a characteristic that they seem to have. I think we see that as a common theme. Based on that, how did you decide what you wanted to study? Where did you want to go to school? Take us through that process.
Sure. Yeah. So softball, as I mentioned, was a really big part of my life. And I was a pitcher with that competitive spirit and wanted to continue my career in college. So that really drove my college selection. I wanted to go somewhere that I could continue to play, but also get a really great education, which led me to Franklin and Marshall College out in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And while I was there, I really enjoyed my time. I got to learn all different types of mediums, being that it's liberal arts. So I took a Buddhism class, I took a finance class, I took a dance class. But really what I was drawn to was the business side of things. And that's when I really decided that business was the path I wanted to go on. It really spoke to my entrepreneurial spirit, my work ethic, my competitiveness, but also I'm a people person. So I knew I could always be in the lives of helping people in a really fun way with their businesses. So it was a great experience. And like I said, all of that, I feel as though kind of every step of my life has been a building block to get me to where I am today. So it's certainly informed how I operate in business today.
That's great.
Yeah. So how
College
about you,
athlete,
Mike?
that's a big commitment. Yeah.
Yeah. What was
Yeah.
your
So I grew up in a household where my father worked. My mom mostly stayed home and took care of us as the kids. I guess you know that traditional old school kind of environment. My dad, like you were saying, worked very hard. He was an engineer and he built power plants. So he used to travel quite a bit, but he always seemed to be around and have time for us when we needed it. So that was important to me. And he always, I think, both parents instilled in me kind of that spirit of I could do whatever I wanted to and put my mind to. I was also a high school athlete and very had a very competitive side, and so I think that that part of me helps drive me even today. I find that the lessons I learned in sports and working with teammates has been an integral part of helping me understand business and how to put teams together and work with other folks, typically from different backgrounds, all for the same goal to be successful. So that was really, I think, really important for me. I think had a bunch of different things that I wanted to do, but my dad being an engineer, he was also very involved in finance, and he used to buy stocks and analyze stocks and walk through the Wall Street Journal with me and those sorts of things. And so I got a very deep interest in finance, and so I decided to go to school for finance. Went to Temple University here in Philadelphia. That's what kind of brought me to the Philadelphia area, and so kind of set on that course to getting really involved in business, and the financial end of it really gave you the knowledge of kind of how all of the parts of business come together, I think, to be successful. And so that was kind of my background, and I think I've built on that certainly through the years and the different things I've done. But that was my initial foundation.
Wow, that's awesome. So, do you feel like you are still using some of those lessons learned in your childhood today with the Sharp Financial Group? Do you kind of find yourself going back to some of those lesson learned, or have you grown on a lot of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, just like you said before, the building blocks in your background, I think everything that you learn and the experiences you have are all building blocks. I don't think you learn one lesson and then turn away and learn another. I think it's an iterative process and it builds on each. And so for me, the background, certainly the education I had at Temple was very important. I had some opportunity from some leadership roles there. I was the president of a fraternity, which was a good experience. Nothing like, trying to organize 40 or 50 guys on a regular basis and keep everybody in order and actually get some things done too. So that was fun. Also was the captain of, played rugby in college. And so I was the captain of that team. And so those leadership experiences were very important. I guess, looking back on all the experiences I've had, when you're working with other people, whatever it is, a project at school or a game that you're playing or the fraternity experience, those have been the things that have been very vital for me in learning how to be successful at business. Because the one thing you learn, or I learned anyway, and I think, is a part of what my experience here today is at Sharp, is that business is a team effort. Very rarely, I think, do you see people that are individuals succeed. I mean, certainly there's stories of that, but for the most part, I think that when people come together and work hard for a common goal, that's really when you start to see success happen. And if I think back on my childhood and my college experience, I mean, those are the building blocks that I had that kind of brought me to that realization today.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's funny, you when you grow up on kind of that team environment and then you are put into it today, you kind of had those conversations before and you know
Right.
how to delegate and you know how to communicate effectively and you don't even realize really that you're doing it in the moment. But then you kind of get into the workplace and you're like, oh, that was easier than I thought it was going to be.
Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah. I've done this before. I can
yeah,
handle this.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But all really important. And yeah, I feel very similarly.
How did you end up at CBRE? Was that a job out of school, or
Yeah,
did you
so
work?
I was lucky enough to get an internship my sophomore year of college, and I didn't even know commercial real estate existed. So that was like a really eye-opening experience for me. I had the pleasure of kind of seeing it from a high-level management perspective and learning about all the ins and outs of the industry with CBRE. And then I came back for more the following summer. I had the opportunity to work on the team that I am currently working on. And right out of college, kind of the stars aligned and they were ready to take on a young associate. And I started right out of college. So this is all I've known since kind of my college career. And it's been a really awesome, but definitely, we've been in this crazy time, as many have experienced with the pandemic, and it's directly impacted the office use and office market. So,
Yeah.
I've had the privilege of seeing it in its height in 2019, and then kind of in its confused state in 2020. And now we're kind of on the other side of it and seeing what the future looks like. So it'll be interesting in, hopefully 10 years when I can look back on this and recount some stories. But right now we're
Right.
kind of in the thick of it.
Hopefully,
So
I'll look at it back with a smile, right?
yes, I hope so.
It is. It's the time is so uncertain. It's been crazy.
Yeah.
So, well, that's great. So, that's a lucky experience. That co-op experience is great. That's neat that F&M offers that. Um, the
Yeah. How about
my
yourself?
mine. What's that?
I said, how about yourself? How did you
Yeah.
start?
Mine was a little bit of a different background. I would say I've worked for a number of companies. I like to say that they were self promotions, but
Mhm.
when given a new opportunity, I had to go to another organization to learn new skill sets and create upward mobility for myself. So, certainly, definitely a cool path, like at a big company like CBRE. But I've mostly worked at smaller companies. I've had some big company experience, but I would say, what I really did with my finance background is create different opportunities for myself that gave me the viewpoint on different aspects of business. I spent time working in operations. I spent time working in sales. I've had leadership roles with the companies I've worked for. Like I mentioned, I worked for big companies, but I've also worked for very small companies, a little small publicly traded company where I ran the branch offices and professional services type environment. And then I had worked in wealth management. So I had exposure to that, which definitely requires your financial services knowledge. And then I was lucky enough to get into a role in the accounting space. And I started off kind of in a sales role there. The regional company I was with was bought by a global company. And I realized I liked the entrepreneurial environment, the smaller environment. I used to say, I like to be close enough to the flame of what's going on in a business to feel the heat. And, in a large organization, I felt like you could barely see the flicker. So getting myself back into a small firm that was looking to do cool things was exactly what Sharp offered me. And so I've really relied on those various experiences plus my finance background. I work with a bunch of accountants now and CFPs, so being able to understand their language and what they're talking about when we're working with clients. And I've actually morphed my role more into investment banking role. So many of our clients are considering what life after owning a business might look like. And so I get very involved in taking them through a potential liquidity event, whether it's an all or partial sale or recapitalization of their business. I get very involved in that. I like you. I think you mentioned you like helping people, and
Mhm.
that's very satisfying, especially when you work with these entrepreneurs like the types we interview on the show normally. It's very satisfying, and you really feel like you're making an impact and helping them change their lives. So it's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Absolutely, Mike, that's a lot. You've seen it all and you've learned it all. So do you feel like there were any types of skills that you kind of, I mean, it sounds like you really gained skills from every role that you had. But were there any that really stuck out that now you really lean heavily on in your current position? Um,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty, but what are kind of the major ones?
No, I think that's great. Thanks, Katie. I would say the most important skill set I've learned is the sales aspect. And you saw that firsthand from your dad and your grandfather. My dad was an engineer, like he didn't sell anything. I'm sure somebody did at the company, but he was going to work to build the power plant. So that aspect of building a network and connecting with prospective clients and how to do outreach and use your network, like those were all things that I learned in various stops along my career line there. And I would say that is probably the most important thing, because in a small business environment, we count on the principles of the firm to drive new business growth and client acquisition. And so it's not like that's another department here. Like everybody has to have that experience. And I find that does help set me apart from other folks that, I don't want to shortcome the ability to learn the technical experience, but I feel like a technical experience can be not easily learned, but it can be learned. The sales piece, it doesn't always come naturally to people. And so, I mean, I felt like I kind of had to force myself to really know how to do that. But over time, I was in situations, I spent time in commercial real estate as well, and eat what you kill environment. And so if you're not selling, you're not eating. So
Yeah, it's tough.
you
It can
learn
be
quickly.
challenging. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
How
you're
about you? What are some of the things that you put to the test every day and use to be successful in what you're
Yeah, I
doing?
mean, you hit the nail on the head with that relationship building and the trust building. And, I think when you're in certain, especially sales roles, and for example, we do tenant representation. So we exclusively advise companies who are seeking space, and we don't typically represent products. So we're not representing a building. So it's a little bit different because you're not really selling anything tangible. You're kind of just selling yourself. And
Right.
really, I think what I've learned is just how to kind of use those experiences in the past to, show that you're a trustworthy advisor and that you're credible, and really kind of build those relationships and rely on, the work you've done throughout your years of building relationships to help set you up for the future. And it's certainly challenging because it's kind of one of those things that you can't really see, you can't really measure, but
Right.
you're just actively always trying to be a resource for people and really help them. And, for me, I enjoy that. So I think that's what keeps me coming back for more, is it's fun for me. But it's also really challenging because you never know who has a strong relationship with who and what you're up against. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's tough.
And
But
like you said, you're selling a service, so it's not like you can show all the past great work you've done. You have client testimonials and things like that. There's a great podcast. I think it's called "Marketing the Invisible Product," and
interesting.
it's a Australian guy that interviews a bunch of business owners, entrepreneurs that sell services. They sell professional services, and it's a whole different animal than if you're selling somebody a building, right? Like, here's the building, come look at it. Do you like it? Here's what it
Right.
costs. Like, your services are more intangible. So
Yeah, I'll have to check that podcast out for some some advice. So
yeah, we'll see that. Speaking of podcasts, what are some? Have you read anything or listening to anything that you think listeners want to know about, or a book that you
yeah,
might have read recently?
absolutely. I'm a big podcaster. That's kind of my commute activity.
Right.
So I listen to a big range, but I think one of my favorite that's closely related to commercial real estate is it's called 99.9% Invisible, and they kind of deep dive onto things that are crucial to design, but they are really overlooked. So for example, one episode that I recently, it's an older episode, but it's about sand and how important sand is to modern civilization. So I'm sure when we were all sitting on the beach this summer, we weren't really thinking about how important these annoying little pieces of minerals are to just buildings and society today. So that's one that I
Right.
like to listen to. And I also just, I love the classics. How I Built This is your classic entrepreneurial story.
Mhm.
And Freakonomics is another good one, just for some interesting, random kind of just knowledge that I love to learn more about. How about yourself?
How I Built This is great. I always think of our
There you go.
show when I'm listening to that, right? Because he's really getting those entrepreneur stories, and I think that there's a lot of similarities. I love because we talk to many small unknown businesses, right? And he gets
Mhm.
to talk to some of the folks that I remember him talking to the Peloton people, and he gets to talk to the folks that, I think are more recognized nationally, but the stories sound the same. I always think that that's kind of cool. The folks we get to talk to, like nobody else is listening to their story, but it's as good as you can put it up against anybody's story out there that's building a business and being successful and making it happen, right? So
Absolutely.
I think that's very cool. I read a recent book or a book recently. It's called Thinking in Bets by Annie Dukes. Annie was I think a PhD student at Penn here, so local Philadelphia person. She went on to be a big poker star and well recognized in the poker arena. But her book to me was incredible. It got me to challenges the biases with which I look at things. Like you don't even understand the biases with which you look at things because you only have your lens, right? But when you have to make a bet on everything you think or the information you have, and you think about it that way, like how much money would I put on that idea or that thought in my head? And it forces you to open your eyes and really try to look 360 at every kind of thing you come across. It was life changing for me. My wife gets annoyed because I'll bring it up often, but I thought I wish everybody would read the book because it really all of us have so many biases in how we view things and how we filter information that we don't even realize we have, and it really forces you to be on that. So
absolutely. Well, I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, definitely. What's a cool thing that you're working on with a client right now? Any projects in particular?
Yeah, I think right now almost every client is looking at their office space and saying, how do we make this work for the next generation of office users, and what does that mean? So I think what's been really unique is every single person a company or organization has had a different solution so far. So we're really getting in there and kind of changing the way people think about office space. So that's been really exciting, kind of on the forefront.
Any new themes that are coming out from that, like innovative ways people are looking at that?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing is that people are no longer looking at the office as a place to go to do work. They're looking at the office as a place to conduct their business. So what that means is you're having meetings, you're having clients, you're maybe having presentations, but you're not necessarily going to just complete a task. So it's changing kind of what it looks like, and maybe more meeting spaces or event spaces and nicer quality design, and less of your traditional cubicle and kind of sea of cubes. So see if that trend continues, but it's been cool to be a part of those discussions and on the forefront of everything. How about you, Mike? Anything exciting?
Yeah, the number of projects we have. A few clients that we are in the market with, that entrepreneurs worked long and hard on their businesses, and they're thinking that now is the time to maybe look at some kind of an exit or partnering with a larger company to continue to scale and grow. And we have some clients that are taking advantage of maybe a little depression in some of the multiples that we're seeing from a valuation standpoint. And one client in particular is looking at global expansion, so looking to buy companies around the globe.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been great, Katie. I've enjoyed this. We talked so long, and I didn't know that you were a softball star, so it's very cool to learn. And I just played golf the other day with a orthodontist who was from Upper Darby. He was a character.
Oh, there you go. The Delco roots.
Delco roots, right?
Absolutely.
Never go far from that. So our next guest on Money Matters TV is going to be Matthew Pinto. Matthew is a crypto expert. And thank you very much, Katie, for joining me for Growth Stories. And as a reminder, you can download the podcast from iTunes, Stitcher, as well as see programs on our YouTube channel, Money-Matters TV.com. Thank you for joining us for Growth Stories.